bad data is worse than no data, because when you make a decision based on bad data, you have a false sense of confidence, right? Knowing when you really don't know, and having that that bravery. If you're head of data, you might be presenting some numbers to the people that need to make decisions with it. If you weren't careful with your script, or you're not confident in it, you got to be brave enough to say, like, I'm not 100% sure about this, because otherwise you got some marketing team department that's going to spend millions of dollars on something that you aren't confident in.
What is up, digital insiders? This is your host, Mint from Adaptivity. In this episode, we are picking up from where we left off in episode 1.1 with Shane Leese. I highly suggest you go back and listen to the previous episode if you have not done so. In this episode, we dive into the professional side of Shane as the head of data and analytics, what it takes to receive this title, examples of work of data he had done, and where you should start if you want to pursue this path. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Welcome back to EP2, Shane. How are you feeling right now?
Yeah, pretty good. How about you?
I'm all right. I'm doing awesome today. So I'm ready for episode 2, which the topic for today is becoming the head of data analytics. So we'll be diving into what does it mean to do data? What does it mean to be the head of data analytics? And what are some of the stuff you do, the skill sets, and all of those stuff.
Great. Let's do it.
First of all, I'm pretty sure not that many people know when we say data. I mean, well, we kind of know that it's data, it's information, right? But what are actually data if you would have to define it?
I mean, besides information, data is the blood of technology, right? It's what maybe like or the nervous system, maybe. I guess maybe it's more the nervous system, but data in itself can be something that has value just as data. Well, it can also be the information that causes one thing to trigger another thing to happen to trigger another thing, whether it's an email address or some personal information, which is private, and you shouldn't know everybody's personal information anymore because that's the law. Like how you use your application. How many times did you click this button or that button, or how many apps do you have installed? These are all like different metrics. Data can be, you can put this in an Excel spreadsheet with, you could have your list of all your friends' names, and that's data. You could have a guest list for a party where the names in one column, and in another column you have whether they're coming or not, and in the third column maybe whether someone's bringing pizza or wine. These are like a database table might look like. One row, which is like an identifier or something that links to like some entity, and then you might have a bunch of traits about it, values, numbers. It could be a color, it could be a favorite fruit. It's all data. And like when you're in school, or you needed to get into a different university, and they got to figure out where's do they let everybody in that got a score over 700 on the math part of the SAT, or is it 670 or 730? Well, they got to look at the data for everybody that took the test and see where the cutoffs are at, and so the average score isn't always the same each year. All these things are data, like how much money everybody's making, how much taxes they're supposed to be given to the government, and where do they spend that money on. Yeah, so some data is more available to the public than others, and yeah, so it's almost harder to say what isn't data.
That's true. That's true. I would again pull up the thing that you mentioned in episode 1, which is like, how in which area does like the dog poop more than the other, which is pretty cool data set,
It
I
was
would
fun.
say.
It was fun to work with.
Okay. I suppose that maybe 10, 15 years back, there is not that many professional roles that relate data, because like from your position at the company Seven Peaks as the head of data analytics, you are definitely the specialist of
Hmm.
data in the company. But I think There are like the roles which are data related are more widespread today compared to in the past. So, what are some of the available data roles are there like currently in the market?
Let's start at the top. Yeah. So let's think if it's a big organization, you may have a C level data role, like a chief information officer or a chief data officer. This is for a big organization. You need something like that. Underneath them, you may have head of data engineering, head of data science, head of business intelligence. Sometimes the borders between these departments are semi-permeable. But within that, even maybe you have some data product managers. They might be part of that, under the CIO or CDO, or they might be under your like chief product officer. But if you're a product manager and you're trying to get more into data product, you might be the guy that's or girl that is managing the roadmap for what infrastructure needs to be built to support the data needs of the company. So yeah, you have your data product managers, your data engineers, data science. Everybody knows the word, but like, what does it do? Data science is, there's a lot of analytics in there. There's a lot of number crunching. There's a lot of data cleaning. You could be a data scientist and maybe never even touch a machine learning model. You might be building the infrastructure. You might take on some data engineering tasks. If it's a small company, you're probably wearing a lot of hats. If you're in a big organization that has like a CIO, CDO, you might be working on a team of 30 or 50 other data scientists, and you're just tuning like this model. So what you do and what your title means varies widely between companies. If you have a company with data vertical that's hundreds of people strong, then your role is going to be a little bit less varied, most likely, and the title is could be a little better descriptor of what you actually do. But when early on, it's pretty variable. So within business intelligence, you're going to have analysts. You might have to do a bit of data engineering in there. You might have some business analysts. You got to understand the business, how to translate what they need into either work to be done by your data engineers to get that data for them, or work with the product managers to collect it or change some feature in order to get that app to do what you need it to do, so you can collect and display data for your marketing team or your product team. Like maybe you want to do some personalization. All these teams have to start working together. So you have like data engineering is another kind of can be an ambiguous role, but these teams can be doing anything from moving data from one server to another, centralizing it, building in the infrastructure needed for machine learning models, data science models. You might have something that's a little more kind of like a DevOps role, or something called like ML Ops, which is basically like DevOps specialized for machine learning infrastructure. What else? Like data engineers might be, working in like your ETL pipelines. It might be kind of close to like a back-end engineer at that point too, where you need to know your databases. You need to know different types of clouds, anything from Microsoft's Azure, .NET, AWS, GCP. Like you end up needing to know a lot of these things, especially in like data engineering, because you're building the infrastructure for your analysts to be able to retrieve this data. And so sometimes you need to tune it and make sure it performs well, make sure it's not too expensive. So those are some of the big roles. Even within business intelligence, you're going to have analysts, data visualization engineers to build out dashboards, depending what kind of tools you're using. Some of them, maybe you don't need that. A lot of these roles could be very optional. If you have a small company of 15, 20 people, you might be looking for a jack of all trades that, just real strong SQL skills, can write code, can learn how to code, and isn't afraid to do some searching of Stack Overflow to figure out how to do it. So all across these roles, though, I think you need to know how to do, write SQL. you need to have good math skills. So
That's a huge list of name drops, but I'm taking notes, right? So, like for example, we've got data analyst, data scientist, data engineers, BI, the business intelligence, A, the business analyst, DevOps, ML ops, and machine learning ops, data visualizations engineer, so on and so on. And we haven't touched the C-level roles such as like the CIO, the CDO, so on and so on as well. Yep. And yeah, okay. But definitely, I think what you mentioned, which is pretty interesting, is the names are, for lack of better words, it's pretty interchangeable because it will definitely depends on the company structures and what they needed. So maybe if you are going to apply for one, you might want to take a pretty good look at the job description to actually see, like, yeah, the role says data scientist, but maybe you are writing lots and lots of code to capture data. Maybe it's data engineer in terms of the description, but who
Yeah, I
knows?
mean, you really got to understand where the team is at that point when you're joining. Sometimes maybe they're not ready for any real data science for another 6 or 12 months, but they're hiring. They need to get the foundations in place. Some companies they like to give people opportunity to move around and try different things. And my teams, I like someone that's versatile, and I didn't have to really build any really complicated like data science models, but I've built infrastructure. I've done some ML ops, DevOps, some BA work. I've had to play all of those roles, and I think in order to move up to like a head of analytics, head of data, CIO, CDO, at that, like those, especially those C-level ones, then you're also learning a little bit more about, like, you really need to be an expert in things like GDPR, PDPA, like the legal risks. Like if something goes down and there's a data leak, you might be the one, like responsible. So working as in a head of like data role or head of business intelligence, analytics in a more of like a product facing or product focused company versus an agency, it's going to be a big difference. So there's already a roadmap in place, for the company. Maybe it's looking for just a few months or quarters, or depending on how early you're coming in, maybe you're helping build it. But it's not the same as like an agency where the target is to have a set end date, and maybe, come back and do some more work later. But this is something where I come in, and like a lot of people, you're working with the same coworkers for many years. There's a lot of different teams, and maybe you are the first hire for data, and usually that's the way most organizations go. Is you're head of the team first, someone that you think is capable of building out the rest of the functionality. And if you're lucky, where as I was, there was one guy who was very data savvy and was managing all the different Excel spreadsheets that everyone was using, and he was the centralized data function. He was centralizing it, but it was a lot of knowledge within his head, and definitely not scalable. And so,
We are about 7 peaks, is that right?
oh no, this is before Seven Peaks. This was I'm talking about, so like at Pomelo, I came in, and we had one guy doing BI, and really smart guy. I mean, he's still doing really really well now. I believe he's head of data over at L'Oreal now, so I'm very happy for him. Yeah, he helped me get that team scaled up. He let me know, teach me everything that I would need to know, get onboarded, and then we started building out the infrastructure. And so at that point, I needed to know, needed to know about like data warehousing. I needed to know about BI. I needed to have good communication skills to be able to gather the needs from the different departments in the company, and then figure out how to prioritize them. And it was a lot of time in meetings. There was a lot of, I don't know if you would call it technical debt, but it was a lot of time that they had gone without like strong, trustable like data. So it meant a bit of catching up and building a team quickly, hiring data engineers. So even though this was a business intelligence team, it was just a title. So we had data analysts, we had data engineers. We started building our own infrastructure, kind of separate from engineering, which did cause some a little bit friction. But like we needed to be agile, we needed to build things quickly. So sometimes it takes being willing to like take a risk and just push, and like, I know this needs to be built. We're at a startup. We'll merge it into the main stack later and figure it out. So sometimes the things you got to do are things that just take a long time. It could be a long night. You have a board meeting coming up, and you got to get the reports ready, and then you got to do it. So fortitude is one of the necessary ingredients on top of your math and technical skills and communication skills, organizations.
Oh yeah. So yeah, move fast, break things, get the reports ready, have fortitude, and be resilient.
That's it.
Right. So yeah, you've mentioned lots of things that you have done and you are working on. So if I may, so what are some of the necessary skill sets, like hard skills that a person who is the head of data and analytics needs to have to be able to operate efficiently?
Yeah, I would say a background in computer engineering definitely came in handy. The ability to, not just to code in a particular language, but to learn new languages, to be able to budget and to understand that, like, these tools, these things that you're building, they cost money. And so a little bit more like, can you do a P&L? Can you predict, what this is going to cost in a few years? It's a lot of that's just like, simple math, but sometimes we have a tendency to ignore things that we don't like. So
Yeah, I like that one because yeah, I really like did not think about budgeting because actually it's pretty simple. It's where every department leaders needs to do, but some things that people tend to overlook and actually forgot that it's one of the crucial part of leading the
right.
team or the department.
Yeah, so that's a good hard skill. Yeah, good math. My solid SQL skills. Is ability to use Google like a hard skill? I think it's one of the top skills, I think, as a coder, is like just being able to turn your problem into a query that goes out onto the internet, whether it's a query like a SQL query or like in a search bar. I mean, it's really how you solve 90% of your problems.
True, very true.
Yeah.
The ability to actually like have the mindset that you have a Google in your hands and do use it and do know how to use it to actually get an answer that you expect.
But I found like earlier on too, like so I'm building out dashboards, and I was thankful for the time that I spent learning how to use like Photoshop and Illustrator and like some design tools, because like, when you're trying to represent data in a visual way, like, those are super valuable. So actually, like when I'm looking for someone for BI or, some data visualization, I wouldn't ignore people with like design backgrounds, and for people that are in design that are looking for a, kind of a segue into data visualization is a good opportunity. But like, you got to know how to use Excel, even if you don't like it. Even, you gotta have critical thinking, like attention to detail. Like one of the quotes that I remember posting out and like sharing and always kind of sticking to is that like bad data is worse than no data, because when you make a decision based on bad data, you have a false sense of confidence, right? Knowing when you really don't know, and having that, that bravery. If you're head of data, you might be presenting some numbers to the people that need to make decisions with it. If you weren't careful with your script, or you're not confident in it, you got to be brave enough to say, like, I'm not 100% sure about this, because otherwise you got some marketing team department that's going to spend millions of dollars on something that you aren't confident in. You better off not giving them any data. So yeah.
So you need to be responsible for the input that you've provided for the other team because they'll use your data to make pretty much most of the time important business decisions.
Yeah, well, I guess on the hard skills, I mean, there's a lot of really great places to upskill and learn about data science, whether it's like Coursera or like Kaggle, or like I mentioned in the first episode, like on open data, like how do I get started like using data? Like, where am I going to get some data? It's like open data, like you need to know, how to store it, how to tables relate to each other, like, and it's really hard to do that, how to learn that without actually doing it. Obviously there's books, but there's nothing beats hands-on training.
Let me try to put you into this kind of mental experiment perspective. So,
Hmm.
if you are able to jump into a time machine and then you go back to, well, 10 years prior to this, to the young Shane Leese,
Hmm.
and he is taking his first step into the data world, and he wants to learn, but he didn't know where to start, and you get to be his mentor. What would be the steps that you would advise him to do, or some procedure that you would advise him to follow to actually learn to become the version of data scientist that, or data person that you would want to grow into?
Okay. I mean, I could go in a little more detail about my actual path, and I think that, let's see if I can figure out where I would change it. I got my SQL skills locked down. This was really helpful. I was dating someone who worked in data analytics at Ernst and Young. Not everybody. I don't think everybody can go and do that, but it really helped. and she was leading like these women in data science meetups, along with like Stanford University and Citibank and Ernst and Young. I think I couldn't have made it the change without her, to be honest. Like, so I had some good guidance, and it was like, learn Excel, learn how to do VLOOKUPs, learn how to do index match, make sure you like learn SQL and then learn it again, and learn R, once you realize that Excel can't do everything, and try to get in the door somewhere where they'll let you, work with some data. Like, it's sometimes it's taking a job somewhere where you might not do exactly what you want to do, but there's going to be room for you to do it. Meet people in the data world. Like, Kaggle has, these challenges. They've been around. They were around then. They're around now. You can try, and you probably won't win because they got, not to discourage anyone, but like, there's people in there that are just really, really smart in these challenges, and you can see past ones, how people solved it. So there's so much resources there. What would I have done differently? I mean, I had a lot of lucky breaks. I must say that like a lot of things really aligned for me, and I'm not sure how I would have done it better than how I did it. I don't think, even if I really just stuck with it through university and went straight into like a data role, I think, I don't know, I'd still be doing it now. I might have lost interest, I think, because it kind of came back around to me after I was disenchanted, and then maybe I think that's how I was able to just kind of continue to grow like this. But yeah, I mean, like your online code academies, things like that are really great when you're first starting out. I did a couple of those. Sometimes the free ones, sometimes the paid ones. Depends how much time you have, and money, of course. Yeah, I mean, now there's so many different ones on like Coursera. You can get degrees and specializations, and I imagine if I was trying to get my first role in data science, I'm going to need a certificate of something. I need some kind of proof, some project, some portfolio that shows that you can do it and that you understand how you did it. And like, maybe I would have made a portfolio a little earlier, just to kind of show some of the things that I could do. But it's hard with that because like early on, the stuff that you're making, you don't really think it's worth putting in a portfolio. And I remember looking back. I mean, I even remember the election model that I made. I was like, this can't be right. So yeah, watch out for that imposter syndrome when you're learning and doing things that like seems too good to be true, and sometimes maybe you're just have a natural knack for it. So yeah.
Well, so learn your spreadsheets, learn your Excels, learn SQL for sure, stay in touch with the community, and
Hmm.
do some open challenges, open data challenges, maybe on Kaggle and so on. Code Academy and those resources are definitely your friends, the paid one and free one as well. And date someone, no, maybe not that. But actually, I think it's pretty solid as well because basically you are staying close to someone who is in the data loop.
Hmm.
So you definitely get lots of encouragements, and I'm pretty sure like lots of questions are answered pretty easily. So yes, find someone to be
Hmm.
your data buddy, I suppose.
Yeah, there's data meetups and stuff, meetup.com. You can always go to those kind of things. I think those are popular now that we're allowed to go around and go places again.
Will you be hosting any pretty soon?
Ooh, should we?
Well, I mean, after episode 405, maybe we'll get some audience, and then we can make it happen in real life, in physical form.
Yeah, yeah. I got to make some time for it alongside all the other things I'm trying to do.
Well, maybe that's one way of recruitment for you since you're building your team. So yeah,
Right, this is true.
do some meetup, and then yeah, you hire people of that on that day. Okay. And also put your things, put your project, put your models in your portfolio. You don't know, maybe it's a lot better than you think in your head it is.
Right.
That cool. So yeah, I think like we have some good roadmaps of where people should start and some of the things that they can do to become more data competent. And then I suppose that it will diverse into your specialty, as in you want to be an analyst, an engineer, or a BI or a scientist, and so on and so
Hmm.
forth.
Hmm.
So for you personally, since I'm sure that you've mentioned that you've done lots of things in terms of project, in terms of work, what are some of your most interesting data project that you have tackled in the past?
Ooh. I think something that I was like most proud of was the implementation of Amazon, AWS's like personalization, like recommendation tool. And now, thankfully, this was built by Amazon's PhD level data science team, which is you're talking best of breed of in the world. It was more like understanding what it was supposed to do, working with their people, beta testing some of the features, having a case study done on how we used it. At the part that the business cared most about was like this 50% increase in like click-through rates on certain pages, like 10% jump in like conversion rates, which all translated to like over $1 million a month additional. Like it was a lot of additional revenue. It was a lot of better traffic, people seeing the products that were relevant to them with minimal resources. Between me, an analyst or two to help. Do run the A/B tests, and of course, there was the 1 or 2 years of time to build up that infrastructure in order to do to do this, of course. But once we had the BI infrastructure in place, we could see how our customers were using the app, see where they were clicking, and then using that data to train these models. We only needed a handful of people to implement it to get like huge ROI. And so it was really exciting getting interviewed by like Amazon for that and having this write up done and put out into the world. So that was fun.
So the context for this one is when you were working at Pomelo, is that correct?
Yes, yeah, yeah, Pomelo.
Okay, so at Pomelo, you implemented this. What do you call that again? I'm sorry.
Amazon calls it personalized, so it was a product recommendations engine.
Okay, so basically, when you were at Pomelo, where everyone's probably have heard of Pomelo again, but if not, then Pomelo is an e-commerce store where they sell clothes, fast fashion, in short, and you can shop clothes on there. And what you did there is you solved the problem of helping people, or maybe like help the store personalize the clothes that people would likely want to purchase
Exactly.
with Amazon personalized, basically.
Yeah, with Amazon's deep knowledge of e-commerce, we're able to help customers discover products most relevant to them within a library of thousands and thousands of product. It's something that's being used. I think there's a lot of other major players using this because it's just it's quite good. But we were among the first putting this in, beta testing new features. Hopping on a call with a Amazon engineer on a Saturday afternoon, or maybe a Saturday night, or would have been because of the time delay. When I mess up the engine one time, and I got his phone number, and working on the weekends, and they're like, oh yeah, this is how you do it, and it felt really cool because I knew I was they were really supportive at Amazon. They wanted to see this product work. I wanted to see it work. So I really enjoyed that project. Let's see what else I enjoyed. Yeah, one of my earlier projects before I moved to Thailand. So this one was less of a team one. So back then it was a pretty small company. So I was the data guy, and so I was doing a scoring system for neighborhoods in New York, and I wanted to use a whole bunch of different data sources. It was kind of like combining everything I had learned from all the other little studies that I had done with the dog poop complaints, and learning how to use using JavaScript to create my visualizations instead of like a BI tool. And
So it's at the real estate startup.
yeah, this was in New York at a real estate startup. So this was giving customers value when you're not looking for a new apartment. Sometimes there's not a lot of good reasons to come to the website if you're not, during that 1 or 2 years before you're finding another one. So we're creating valuable insights for people or someone curious, not sure where to move to. And so I scraped a bunch of different data on like where were there sidewalk cafes, where do they have bike paths, where did they not have dog poop complaints, where did they not have noise complaints, where were there parks, and of course the more like the core of the business, like where like rent prices, was it affordable, was it close to like a subway station. The subway station system in New York is very expansive. You can get pretty much anywhere on it, but we found that there was like a sweet spot in a certain distance from a subway station, which you don't want to hear it from your apartment, but you want to be able to walk to it. So there was this really complex model that I built to score neighborhoods, and this is actually the one that got featured in the New York City mayor's office, like department of it was like the New York City Department of the Mayor's Office, and they really wanted to promote like their open data, and so they had a little profile on me and linked to my graphic that I code. I mean, I coded it myself. I crunched the data myself. I made it so that the graphic would like be responsive when it got published on a different one website versus another. I wanted like everything was. I owned the whole thing, and it was these little graphics were my baby. So that one was exciting. Yeah.
Okay, so well, an algorithm model and visualizations for that helps you rate and rank the
Hmm.
real estates that people are going to buy. So did that actually turn into like a part of the company or
There's a blog. The blog is still alive, and they still get traffic on it, and they reproduce these things still, like because things change. The data updates, and so I think they're still using some of the format of it. But actually, the graphics, the way that I built this interactive map was quite intuitive, and they ended up integrating that into the website as a way for filtering different neighborhoods. So when you want to go and you go on a property site here and you want to figure out where you want to live, there's so many ways to try to find the place that you want. Maybe you're filtering by like price, by neighborhood, but like sometimes you just want to like click on an area and like see what's available there, and see some stats about it, hover over it, and get some info. So I really kind of like mastered the use of like D3.js. I mean, I mastered at the time. I'm not a master anymore.
I'm pretty sure it's gonna be pretty good. Do you still have the link to that?
Ooh, I think I might. Let's see if I can Google that.
Okay. Well, people, if you are interested in checking out Shane's masterpiece, then we'll put that link in the show notes as well for you to check out and go play around with it and praise Shane for his glory in creating the project. So, like you were talking about like when you were thinking like you were talking to us, you were saying to yourself that yeah, what are some of the interesting projects I've done? So, what are some of the not so interesting projects that you've done, if any, or like I don't know if there's any bad
Oh,
experiences that you are willing to share.
I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but let's say,
So people get the perspective of some of the things that they will have to face working in data as well.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's fair. I mean, it's common knowledge in data science that like 70, 80% of the work is cleaning data, right? And so sometimes like your model is only as good as like, what you put into it. So you gotta clean the data. You gotta make sure the systems generate clean data to like be able to continue to use those models. So like, you can feel like a data janitor instead of a data scientist at some point. And so yeah, there's a lot of data to clean. Sometimes if you are in a company that has a lot of data needs and maybe not enough direction, you may get like a lot of requests for different reports, and they might not all be useful. You may find yourself doing things over and over again. So I mean, I experienced that, like making things that feel pretty similar to each other feels really repetitive. Maybe you're the only one that can do it, and so yeah. I can't. I don't feel right to go into any specifics or name any companies, but I mean, I think it happens anywhere. I really think it'll happen anywhere. Someone has to do some of the dirty work at some point. Like if it's a new company, there's just going to be reports and things that they need to see, and you build it and hope that you don't have to build it again, but at least document it so someone else can update it.
Got
Yeah.
it. So definitely data cleaning will probably be one part that lots and lots of people who work with data despise, I suppose.
Oh, yeah. That's what interns are for.
That's what interns are for. Are you recruiting interns anytime soon?
I will be. I think I'm looking at a few actually.
Okay.
Interns are tricky because it's not always a net capacity ad from the beginning. You got to make sure you don't bring interns and then just like I got like people to do stuff. Like interns have a lot of questions, so you got to make sure you have time to answer their questions. So don't be fooled. I mean, and any hire, any junior hire actually requires a bit more of your time than they before they can add capacity to your team. So
Yeah, definitely. But I'm pretty sure like data cleaning, even though it sounds like tedious and cumbersome, it's one of the probably the most or one of the most important concept that you would need to grasp before
absolutely.
you are able to move on to building any models at all.
You're not getting anywhere without doing that. So
So it's definitely a good experience being a data intern too.
uh-huh. This is true.
You seem like a little not too confident in that, but it's like if you put out the podcast, like, will there be any more interns for Seven Peaks? Like, gonna use you to do data cleaning, but yeah, but it's a good experience. But I'm sure it's gonna be.
I mean, once you got to have the data to clean. I think, yeah, it's just at this stage of the company, I'm laying the groundwork for what the team is going to be in the future. So we haven't yet gotten to the point of just having just too much data. I'm like, what do I do with all this data? Like a lot of the stuff that we're doing now, I mean, there's some internal things like you want to like internal employee data, like things that you wouldn't have an intern touch. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, it's actually pretty fun. Like I think I really enjoyed the conversation today. And like again, I learned a lot, even though it's just episode 2. And for the upcoming few episodes, I think we'll be touching on more of a role specific details of some data roles, right? And you are recruiting as well. So if any of you are interested in joining Seven Peaks team, I think you would be up for episode 3, 4. So
Hmm.
yeah, and last words, Shane.
I think there was one other thing I was thinking about, which, like coming in as a head of data somewhere, there's a lot of talk about AI and machine learning and everything.
Oh
And
yeah.
a lot of companies, they just like, they can't wait to say that they're using AI or machine learning. And sometimes I don't even know what it means. So they just want to say it. And so I think that's a pitfall, something to watch out for. And sometimes you have to please the head of the company and say like that, yeah, okay, we're going to get it, it's on the roadmap, but then you're going to have to balance out like making sure that the fundamental initiatives are being satisfied, which again, it's your data cleaning, tracking, your making sure that you can monitor user growth and revenue. Maybe it's not as sexy as AI, but yeah,
But it needs to be done.
it needs to be done. But yeah, thanks, Mint. Had
It
fun.
was fun. Shane, thank you so much, and I'll see you in episode 3.
Sounds good.
Cheers. If you enjoy our show, please consider rating, reviewing, and subscribing to Adaptive Series anywhere you get your podcast from, including YouTube if that is your thing. Find Adaptivity on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and our website, which is adaptivity.us. Also, we will be turning all the actionable items from the episode into a learning plan on our pub platform. If upskilling is your thing, the pub will do you justice, so give it a try. All links will be in the description of the podcast episode. Thank you for listening, and until next time.